Hello everyone, I'm Lori with Behavior Education at Spirit Keeper Animal Sanctuary. Welcome to Cornsnake Corral for October 6, 2022. In this episode, we are going to talk about where corn snakes rank as far as popularity of pet snakes. We're going to talk about the behavior spectrum that you might come to expect if you get a new corn snake. And then we're going to have a little training tip. So, who is the most popular pet snake? Do you know? If you follow my channel, I'm sure that you know the answer to this, but let's take a look at what science says. In a 2021 research study that used Google Trends to determine current, past, and future trends in the reptile pet trade, which included a survey, the #1 pet snake is the royal python or Python regius, but the #2 pet snake is the corn snake or Pantherophis guttatus. If you look at this figure that is directly from the paper, you will see the green lines, and you will see that I've circled the royal python there as #1, the corn snake as #2, and that red circle with the #3 above it is the boa constrictor. There are other reptiles on this chart, and so if we're just looking at the most popular pet reptiles, they include royal pythons, bearded dragons, corn snakes, leopard geckos, and crested geckos. But if we are strictly just looking at snakes, the top 3 are the royal python #1, the corn snake #2, and the boa constrictor #3. Other snakes that made this top 10 list were also the Burmese python, the king snake, the milk snake, and the reticulated python. The other reptiles on this chart are all lizards, I believe. So there you have it. Corn snakes rank #2. And if we want to boost their popularity, then you guys just need to keep more corn snakes as pets, and you need to let everybody know it. And if somebody wants to survey you, make sure you answer the survey and say that you have a pet corn snake or more than one. Now, what do we think about corn snake temperament, corn snake personalities? If you randomly were to go out and get a new pet corn snake, what could you expect from them? Can you just randomly choose one and know that it's going to work out for your lifestyle, your personality, and within your family? Is it going to meet your expectations? Well, let's take a look. Corn snakes, just like royal pythons, vary widely as far as personality. And personality in any organism is determined by a whole lot of factors, including genetics, temperament, which is something that organisms are just innately born or hatched with. Temperament is just how we are as a person, as an animal, as a snake. Personality is also determined by life experiences, prior learning history, level of resiliency, coping styles, and the environment. Let's go back to temperament for a minute. Everyone, including your corn snake, is going to have an innate temperament. They're going to tend to be bold or shy. There are going to be a few that might be in the middle, but unlike many things where you've got most grouped in the middle and then you've got outliers, when it comes to temperament, it's actually more common to have everybody grouped to one end of the spectrum or the other, and you might have a few that fall in the middle. So your corn snake is likely to be on the shy end of the temperament spectrum or the bold end, and likely to be neophobic or neophilic. Neophobic means that they're afraid of new things, and neophilic means that they're curious and attracted to new things. Now, why such a difference? Well, when I look at other species like Morelia bredli, which is my favorite snake species, I can pretty much tell you that the majority of them are going to have a specific temperament and personality, level of resiliency, and that if I have certain expectations of a Morelia bredli, based on what I know about the species and their behavior, they're probably going to be pretty close to spot on, and occasionally there'll be an outlier. But when we're looking at species like royal pythons and corn snakes that are bred in the thousands and that still have wild blood infused with the captive breeding programs, you are going to have a huge range of genetic diversity, which translates to a huge range of behavioral diversity, a huge range of different temperaments. So you can't just randomly pick out a corn snake and automatically think it's going to be outgoing and bold and friendly. But I also can't say if you randomly pick out a corn snake, it's going to be super shy and afraid of new things. It's going to probably be one or the other, or it may fall a little bit in the middle. But really, in order to pick one out that's going to suit your personality, your lifestyle, and your expectations, you need to work with the breeder or the seller. You need to ask some questions about their temperament and behavior. But you also want to ask questions about past life experiences. How have they been raised? What have they been exposed to? What's their learning history been like? Have there been any prior training experiences, whether informal or formal? Level of resiliency means how well does the animal bounce back after something adverse happens? So something scary happens, a bad thing happens. For people, maybe we're in a car accident, or we fail a class, or we just have something really horrible happen. How soon can we bounce back from that and move on? That's what resiliency is. And your corn snake's going to likely have a different level of resiliency based on genetics, innate temperament, life experiences, prior learning history, etc., and the environment that they have been raised in. Coping styles are going to be things like, is the corn snake really reactive? Like, does everything in the environment impact it and bother it, and is it worried about everything? Or is it going to be extremely proactive, which means it's actually more rigid in its behavior because it's more confident. It's not so worried about things going on around it. It's just going to be who it is despite other things that might be happening. So reactive snakes tend to be the ones that are going to freeze or hide because they're very bothered by things. And animals that have this freeze hide response actually have higher stress hormone levels released into their system, and that stress impacts them for a longer period of time. So they may take longer to recover after something scary happens or there's an adverse event. Animals that are more proactive are going to be the type that exhibit fight or flight when they're stressed, when something happens, but then it's going to be over with and they bounce right back and they're fine much quicker than the animals that are very reactive and let everything bother them and tend to freeze or hide or just kind of shrink away from the world. So if you're picking out a corn snake, you want to keep these things in mind, and depending on your lifestyle and your expectations of it, you want to try to work with a breeder that's going to pick one out that suits your expectations. But also, if you end up with one that isn't quite a good match, you need to just accept that individual for who they are. This is how they are, and you can't put expectations on them that they're not going to be able to fulfill. Remember, you can't make an animal something they're not. You have to accept each animal for who they are and individualize their care and the way in which you behave around them. Modify your own behavior and your expectations based on the animal in front of you, today. It doesn't matter what your corn snake did yesterday or what they might do tomorrow. They are how they are today, and lots of different things impact that. We aren't in the same mood from day to day, neither is your corn snake. You can use training and behavior science to modify behavior, but you can't change the nature of the animal. So we can work to make shy snakes less shy, to make reactive snakes less reactive. We can work to build resiliency. However, we can't completely turn a shy snake into a bold snake. We can just make them less shy. Hopefully that makes sense. If you have more questions about this, feel free to reach out. All right, here's my training tip for this week. The snake may think the goal behavior is something other than what you intended. So you're training your snake and you have this beautiful goal behavior in mind, and you think that your snake knows what you want. You believe that your snake knows exactly what they're supposed to do, but then you start your training session and it goes awry. Something happens unexpected. I want you to watch the video of Braytac. My goal behavior is for him to follow the target out of his enclosure to the scale and pause for reinforcement when I stop moving the target. Watch the video and tell me, what do you think Braytac believes the goal behavior is. In other words, what does he think he has to do in order to earn that reinforcement? Okay, take a look at this video. Braytech is in his enclosure. I have got the scale set up in front of it, and I'm opening the door. You'll notice he comes out right away. I hadn't asked him to do anything yet, but he comes out. Now watch what he does. What's his expectation right now? I try to re-engage with the target. What do you think is going through his mind right now? Watch what my solution is to salvage this session. And that's a quail. I was using quail as a reinforcer for repetition 1 in this session. And I had planned to do 2 repetitions, and we did end up doing 2 repetitions during this session. This was repetition 1. Okay, what did you see? What do you think Braytech thought the goal behavior was? Well, after this session, after this first repetition, I believe it was clear that Braytech thought he was supposed to lunge at the target, and then he would get reinforced for that because he followed the target beautifully, he lunged at it, and then he immediately looked down for that reinforcement to appear. And when it didn't, he was confused. And then when nothing happened after that, I think he was frustrated and confused, and he started to go back into his enclosure. Well, how I salvaged this session was I briefly paused, I took the target away, I stepped back for a few seconds, and then I re-engaged with him by simply pairing the target with food. It's the most basic target training exercise. It's the first thing that we do when we start target training is pair the target with food or another reinforcer. And so I put the target and the food paired together directly in front of him so that he was able to get his reinforcement. And then you'll see here in a minute that during repetition 2, everything changed, and we had a much more successful session from my point of view because his behavior was closer to the goal behavior I had in mind. All right, everybody, let's take a look at session number 2, which isn't perfect, but he's a beginning learner, and he does get reinforced for, in my opinion, a better behavior than what occurred during the first repetition. So he's pretty comfortable and relaxed. He is swallowing his first meal. I present the target. He's following the target. He's much calmer. He does lunge at it. However, he stays engaged with the target and he tongue flicks at it. And I immediately reinforce that because that is a closer approximation to our goal behavior than the behavior that he demonstrated in the first repetition, which was to lunge at the target and then disengage with it and look elsewhere for the reinforcement. So I was happy with repetition number 2, and we'll just move on from here when we continue with this training. So even when things don't go as planned, you still usually always have something that you can learn from your snake. And if you pay attention to what your snake is telling you, you have more information based on the interaction that you just had with your snake than you had before, and you can use that new information to move forward for your next interaction with your snake. So until next time, everybody, please remember to always be kind, love your animals, and contact me if you have any questions or if you'd like to discuss something. You can reach me at behavioreducationllc@gmail.com, at behavioreducation.org. You can reach me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, or if you would like more one-on-one conversations with me, group live chats, or access to me through phone, email, or text, you can consider becoming a patron. You can go to patreon.com/behavioreducation and look at the different tiers and the benefits in each one. Thank you again so much.